So I'm here in Aurora, Colorado, and the thing that brought me here was the recent spread of a Venezuelan prison gang known as Tren de Aragua. The gang started in Venezuela, grew under Maduro's collapsing regime, and became powerful enough to start spreading tentacles out of Venezuela and into neighboring countries, and then more recently sending lots of people up to the United States to establish the gang here in places where there are many, usually Venezuelan migrants, because this is a community that they're able to recruit new members out of. There was a viral video that came out somewhere around maybe July, August timeframe that was posted in New York Post about a building called The Edge at Lowry, and that's actually where I'm at right now. So there's a set of 6 apartment buildings running down the street here, and it's kind of a rough neighborhood, so I'm going to be a little bit cautious about getting out of the car. I've gotten some really weird stare downs when I've kind of cruised through the neighborhood before, so being circumspect, wanted to at least stay in the safety of the car. So, but this is the end building in this set of 6 is where that viral video was posted of 6 gang members from Tren basically going in and kicking down doors of apartments and threatening the residents. One of the guys who was in that group wound up participating in a shooting at another property that we're going to go see here in a minute. Tren has been identified now as operating in 16 U.S. states with probable operations in 4 more. One of the early spots where they ensconced themselves was here in Colorado. Denver has, on a per capita basis, the highest number of Hispanic migrants that have entered under the Biden administration. And so this was a spot where there was a lot of folks that could be recruited out of. Tren has an easier time kind of hiding out inside of the neighborhood amongst the Hispanic population here. And so this is an interesting setup. So I'm going to do a quick drive-by of the properties here, and then we're going to head up to what's known as Fitzsimmons Place. It's gone under many names, but it's a building that's actually owned by the same investment group as The Edge at Lowry here, and appears to have been probably targeted by Tren because they were such poor landlords, allowed properties to get into such a bad condition that ultimately Tren was basically able to move in, kind of take over vacant apartments that people weren't able to live in because heat went out, or they're chock full of roaches and bed bugs and rats and stuff. So this company, CBZ Management, is pretty notorious in the area for running properties down and not making them nice again. So just to give an idea, do a quick drive-by here. So these buildings were not evacuated. The city of Aurora had wanted to, but instead what they did was they forced third-party management onto CBZ Management. So said, basically, we're not going to let you manage these properties anymore, and instead we're going to put a third-party manager in charge to look after things. And they were able to keep people from having to be kicked out. So I'm just going to do a quick circle here. Jump into the with trash. Broken windows, boarded up windows. What Tren appeared to have been doing was taking over these apartments that were empty and putting migrant families in who didn't have other places to be able to live. Housing's really tight here in the Denver area with the number of migrants who are coming in. It's a sanctuary city in a sanctuary state. And so, in part, this is a big attractant factor for folks of potentially dubious origin, or folks who are on an asylum track who are maybe a little bit afraid that they will have that ended possibly prematurely under Trump. So we're going to head up to another apartment block that is owned by the same company, CBZ Management, and this one was the site of a federal bust. According to neighbors, the Aurora PD more or less stopped showing up when they would call the cops, the people in the area, when there was violence. And once that happened, things got way more violent. So we're coming up on Colfax Avenue, which is the main commercial drag through this part of town, and you're going to see there's probably half the businesses are Hispanic oriented, so whether they're Mexican restaurants, or you'll see the Spanish names for the different types of businesses. Seguros, insurance. We've got lots of Hispanic oriented businesses here, but so heavy Hispanic population in this part of North Aurora. And we're driving towards the University of Colorado Health Campus. The building that we're going to be looking at is right next to it. We're in the block right next to the big UC Health Campus, which is interesting because you've got a multi-billion-dollar installation, and then federal drug and firearm busts happening a block away. So talking to neighbors around the Fitzsimmons Place property that we're headed to, apparently things were just super lawless. The streets were bumper to bumper stolen vehicles that were being chopped, sold. The police, after a while, apparently got tired of just always being called there and stopped showing up quite so regularly, and that's when apparently the violence started to ramp up. In the month before Fitzsimmons Place was shut down, apparently there were 9 homicides, 6 in the parking lot of the building, which was a hot spot for all kinds of drug dealing. There was prostitution that was being run out of the building, and the normal residents were just miserable. People were trying to do whatever they could to get out. The buildings were infested with bed bugs, rats, cockroaches. So these properties appear to have been targeted by Tren because they were owned by CBZ Management, which is interesting. I wasn't in talking to folks around the buildings, in the apartment blocks around the buildings. It doesn't look like Tren tried to move in necessarily on basically testament to just how badly CBZ had allowed their buildings to devolve, that opened the opportunity for Tren to essentially come in and start taking over territory. And you'll see in the neighborhoods here, we're getting close, spots where you've got anti-TDA graffiti sprayed onto buildings. But kind of a mixed neighborhood, multifamily, single family, and straight ahead of us is the big UC Health campus. But Fitzsimmons Place is right up here. And we're going to do a slow cruise around it. Apparently, once it got shut down August 13th and they moved everybody out, things in the neighborhood improved radically. One disabled vet neighbor that I was talking to said, I can go out and walk again. So, this here is the parking lot where a lot of the criminality was happening. And these were the streets that were lined with all of the stolen vehicles. This house here apparently was occupied by a drug dealer with lots of traffic in and out. He doesn't live there anymore, according to neighbors. But this is the Fitzsimmons Place building. Somewhere between 300 and 400 people were evicted in the middle of August. And all of the vehicles and everything were hauled off of the parking lot here, and then obviously security fencing was installed. Building was boarded up and has stayed empty now for the last few months. So this was apparently one of the primary places where everything was going down with Tren. There were, according to neighbor, 6 people that got killed in this parking lot in the month before the big bust, and then 3 people inside of the building. Once it was shut down, the neighborhood got a whole lot better. Tren appears to be spreading in the US. One of the things that they appear to be doing is occupying a spot in the criminal infrastructure where they're willing to do a lot of violent things that other gangs are not. And so it appears that Tren is taking a page out of the playbook of the cartels in how they operate in Mexico. So Tren has apparently permission from on high in the organization to shoot cops, to torture people. They're taking over prostitution, low-level drug dealing, weapons smuggling, burglary. but they don't have the resources to be doing a lot of manufacturing of drugs and a lot of importing. So they're running migrants, they're forcing people into prostitution, and taking over buildings like this. According to CBZ management, the owner of the building, Tren had approached them and offered to essentially help manage the building for some percentage of the incoming rents, which was rejected out of hand by the property ownership. So I'm going to chase down some more of this Tren stuff. They appear to be on the level, operating on the level, doing the same kinds of things as MS-13 or Barrio 18 or some of the homegrown street gangs, but operating much more violently with fewer rules, especially when it comes to dealing with law enforcement. They're willing to get violent and perhaps even deadly.